Timmy,
Hey, buddy.
it's 11-ish.
It's 11-ish. Look, that's what we say,
Listen,
right? 11-ish.
I will own it today. I was having computer issues, and you gently and generously walked me through them. And
I did I did absolutely nothing. You troubleshooted the whole thing, and here you are.
The fact that never once I was like, hey, let's do the virtual thing today, and I had other gear pulled out. We won't even get into that. But
Andrew,
look,
why would I drive to Safety Harbor? I have no other need to get down there right now. It's 40
maybe
minutes.
Because last Monday we talked about going to Applebee's and how exciting that was going to be, and I just know you've got camp coming up, Timmy, right? When's camp?
I do. We could
When are you
probably
looking for camp?
we could probably go remote while I'm on the bus. We rented a 55 passenger bus. I could go right from my iPhone. You could run the stream.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit better. But Timmy, yesterday was Monday. Wait, no, that's not it. Yesterday was
You have forgotten everything. Who is this person? Who is this?
It was Sunday. Yesterday was Sunday.
And this is the morning after. I guess. I don't even know what day it is. Neither does Andrew, apparently.
I'm so tired.
Welcome to the Morning After Ministry Show, a caffeine-fueled look back on the week and ministry that was.
Well, hello world. My name is Tim. This is Andrew. Usually on Sundays or Mondays or Tuesdays, whatever day.
Whatever day this is, I don't know.
Who knows? We get together, we hang out a little bit. We talk the week in ministry that was.
So, Timmy, how was your week? How was your ministry? How was it that was?
It was what it was, Andrew, but we all need to know. We saw pictures from yesterday. I'll get into my stuff soon, but you had a big day yesterday. So walk us through what happened. You and I barely talked about this, so tell us what's going on.
I wasn't supposed to know things. It's hard to plan a real secret surprise when you live in the house with someone who's planning the secret surprise and she's spending an inordinate amount of time across the driveway at your parents' house. So, I found out 2 or 3 weeks ago, hey, you're not preaching on Sunday the 9th. We're doing something for your graduation, and that's all you're allowed to know, is what I was told. And so I tried to, keep my nose out of it, but our superintendent, kind of your boss and mine, but not really, because our churches are our bosses, but one of those, if our churches get mad at us, the person they call, which there's way more to the job than just that. We had a college student who I'm pretty close with said to me yesterday, so this person that's coming, if we were a Catholic church, what would their rank be? And I was like, I think she would be a bishop. He's like, okay, cool, because he's like in the Western Civ part of college where he's, learning about church history and things like that. Yeah. And so our superintendent, the Reverend Dr. Catherine Gilliard, came and preached and kind of, challenged me and the church for here's what this looks like. And then the church kind of threw a giant graduation party for me, which was exciting. It was funny. I was going into the nursery at about 1:45 because we hit live on our live stream at 1:45. So I was going to make sure that it was up in the nursery, depending on who's working in the nursery. Some Sundays I think, hey, I should go make sure it's up versus having nursery workers try to be loving on babies and try to figure out how to get YouTube to a smart TV.
Yep.
And so I go into the back kids hallway, and there's a first grade boy who sees me, and he just stops and barricades the door. He's like, no, Pastor Andrew, you can't come in here right now. It was really funny. He was trying to keep me out of the fellowship hall. So it was neat. We did the cake and the food. We always do the food thing. But Tim, I don't know if, I was going to give you your copy today, but they had the Harbor Post printed up.
Look at that.
And it's a newspaper. And so they put little notes of encouragement from people in the church.
Look at that.
They're in the paper. So the different columns are different things from people in the church. And my favorite
I can't
part
wait to
was
see this.
The kids in the youth group all made fun of me for my inability to beat them at Wii Sports. But I won the bowling tournament this past week.
Oh, that was glorious.
Also, there's an obituary to the squirrel that caused the power outage right there
Wow.
as well. So we have
Wow.
a very cool church newspaper that they printed out and passed out. So it was cool. It was really cool. Like I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what was going on, and so it was neat again to have our superintendent come down and preach and was. But as you and I always say, like we think that we're getting a Sunday off when we're not preaching, and that's just no,
Yeah.
we're 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 not. And there's a different kind of stress level when somebody else is preaching.
Oh
And
yeah.
on top of that, we were breaking in a brand new soundboard. And so there was the extra stressors of, oh no, we got to make sure this sounds good and
It
that the mix
sounded
is
good
right.
though. I hopped on
It
the live
sounded
stream.
good.
No
Yeah.
issues. I don't think.
Everything sounded good. Everything went beautifully, and
Yeah.
I felt very, very loved by my church. It was a good day.
I love everything about that. CJ says he doesn't love Andrew. I do love Andrew. CJ, I just couldn't make. Look, we were up very late last
mean,
night.
We
I went and
we
I
talked
smacked
about
my.
Applebee's. I
I
was
had to
so
smack my
excited.
son at
$6.99 burger.
Stop it. Stop it. My son was up at 2 a.m. rearranging his room. Like, bud, it's 2 o'clock in the
I
morning.
thought
Like,
he was.
why?
I thought he moved into the loft for the summer.
He did. But somehow he found his way into his room and he thought, this is a good time to rearrange. I don't have school right now, so I'm just going to do whatever I want. That's just
I remember
not how this works.
like middle school Andrew. It was like you want that little bit of autonomy and like, hey, I'm not going to have my own apartment for the next 15 years,
Yep.
but I can put my bed on the other side of the room and move
That's
my
it.
dresser.
That's
It was
it.
like
That's
the
the thing.
most freedom that also there's way more room for me to, do my workouts in here if there's a whole empty wall or whatever it is. That
And
was
I'm
me
fine
constantly.
with it. Just not at 2 in the
It's
morning.
not 2 in the morning. Yeah.
Any other time. CJ's wondering if I'm going back to Pigeon Forge. Very close. Same camp location. It's actually in you could either say Sevierville or Seaverville, right down the road from Pigeon Forge.
No one says Seaverville.
I've talked to locals that say Seaverville. So
Well,
I've been going there for
also the
10
It's also the
years.
county with like the least high school diplomas per capita in the state. So that makes sense. It's
Yep.
before Dolly Parton stepped in, there was a giant dropout rate. So that makes sense how they can't pronounce the name of their own city.
So we are leaving here very, very soon. 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from right
2 weeks
now.
from today.
I will
See,
be
I thought
on
it
the
was
bus.
next Monday that you were leaving because 2 weeks from right now, I will be in the car on my way to Arkansas.
I will be on the bus headed up to Tennessee for a week with a couple thousand teenagers. It should be a ton of fun. Andrew, I don't typically like missing camp. I have no plans to miss camp. So, yeah, of course, I'm absolutely going to camp. As you know, Andrew, you guys are always invited to go with us. So one of these years, if you ever want to go back to camp, you're more than
I
welcome.
would love to. I really would, and I hope to make it happen.
Ben,
I
Andrew
hope
is
to make it happen.
absolutely loved. I thought that was the coolest thing. You guys honored you. We opted not to honor me. We honored our grads.
Well, I
yesterday.
understand because, Tim, you actually haven't accomplished anything in the past few years, so that makes
That's
sense.
true. That's true. So we honored all of our high school graduates, which it had this, I don't know, I was talking to Stephanie on the way home from church yesterday, and it had this classic church feel. I don't know if everyone still does Grad Sunday where you just bring up the graduates, you pray over them, and you just say, you guys are awesome. Here's what they're up to. It's a really cool scene.
You give them a little gift that was purchased at Family Christian from the $5 table like 6 hours before.
Our youth pastor, he got them
Back when Family Christian used to exist.
He got them a really personal gift and had all the small group leaders write in it. I think he got them all Bibles and something else to go along with it. It was really sweet. It was really sweet.
One year, I was at Family Christian at that grad table, and they had Jeremiah 29:11 bottle openers, and it was the funniest thing I had seen in my life. I texted it to all of my senior boys, and I said, so what do you think? Do we present this in front of the whole church? And they were so mad at me when I gave them Bibles because they thought the Jeremiah 29:11 bottle openers were so much funnier. But alas.
Well, what you should have done was you should have gotten them the Bibles on stage and then afterwards handed them the bottle openers. That would have been funny.
And, how can anybody get mad? You turn in the receipt and it says Family Christian. No one's going to question what you're buying at Family Christian.
No, of
So
course not.
I could have gotten
Of course,
away
that's
with it,
back
but
when
I didn't.
Family Christian still existed.
Do you remember when there were like competing Christian bookstores?
Oh, yeah. How do you
Not
think I
anymore.
discovered new music when I was a teenager? I would go to the Christian
You
bookstore,
would go in, put the
I'd put the
CD
CD
on
in.
with the headphones.
headphones. They had like 6 or 7 listening stations. I would immediately go to the Christian heavy metal section, and I would
Of
discover
course you would.
if it was Tooth and Nail or Solid State Records, whatever that was at the time. I'd get the magazine, the Tooth and Nail or Solid State magazine, and I would discover new music.
And our kids will never get to do that again. Our kids
Ever.
will. There's so many experiences that our kids will miss out on, and it just kind of makes me sad sometimes. And that's one of them. They will
It's-
never wear headphones at Family Christian, or buy an Old Navy T-shirt that says "One sailor or one savior, 12 disciples in a boat." The original Old Navy. I had a shirt that my Aunt Sarah got me that said "A breadcrumb and fish." It was the Abercrombie logo.
Abercrombie. Yep.
Yeah, and our kids just won't get that. And
That makes me
makes me
sad.
sad.
Although we do have
R.I.P. brick and mortar Christian stores.
we have a young married couple at Lakeview, and they think it's hilarious to wear 90s Christian t-shirts, like youth group t-shirts to church. They're like, I don't know, 19, 20 years old, real young married. And I'm like, every week I'm like, where, like how, like this is their fit. They're like, this is what we wear all the time. We love this stuff. So they are like
Is there
making
like
it.
is there a vintage Christian clothing store on
Yeah.
Depop or something that I should be
Something.
aware of?
Like they're rocking the WWJD stuff. They're rocking like DC Talk stuff. Like every week I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever, because as you know, Andrew, I was a youth group kid, like
Yeah,
late 90s,
you were
early
in that era.
2000s.
Tim, let me ask you this question about WWJD, because I referenced it in a sermon a few weeks ago
Yeah.
and did a deep dive. Do you realize where I had people in my sphere that were like, no, we're not going to get behind that movement. And as like a 7th grader, I was like, what the heck? Why not? Do you realize, and I'm forgetting the guy's name, that the book In His Steps, like that asked the question that the bracelets came from.
Yeah.
The book had been out for like 100 years before the movement started.
Very old book.
He was quite literally a Christian communist. Like all Christians should be living in communal societies.
That is
and,
hilarious.
You know, and so the
I read the book as a
conservative-
middle
the
schooler, but I had no
fiscal
idea that
and
was that.
politically conservative Christians were like, oh, we should not get behind this movement because we don't want our teenagers to turn out to be communists for Jesus.
Wow. Wow. So, Andrew, we did have a bit of a surprise yesterday. I noticed our setup guy who helps set up chairs and whatnot on Sunday, he kind of rearranges things a little bit and makes things look good every Sunday. He was putting out lots of extra chairs, and I just thought, it's June. We live in Florida. Why are we putting out? We literally
Everybody's supposed to be gone.
we put out every single chair in the worship center yesterday, and it was it was nearly standing room only at both services. So
What are you doing, Tim?
I don't know. That's what I said. Like, I don't understand why people keep coming. It doesn't make any sense to me. We have no slick advertising campaigns. We barely post
Your
on social
name
media.
is not
all
even
that
on the
much.
sign.
My name is not on the sign.
You say you barely post on social media. You post more than any church I know.
3 times
You
a
have
week.
scheduled. Okay, you have 3 scheduled posts a week, and how many stories on top of that?
Whenever we can. Like, it's not. We don't even
you
schedule it
scaled-
anymore.
Have you
just-
scaled back your stories?
Yeah. We don't really make a concerted, over the top effort. If we have something to share, we'll share it, but it's not like this rigid advertising schedule or anything like that. And we were missing a lot of core families, and yet here we are, we're approaching the middle of June, and we hit Easter numbers yesterday. That doesn't make sense to me.
It's a
Like,
big
are
Sunday.
people just moving into my area at such a rapid rate that this is what the new normal is for us?
I think that's part of it. We weren't quite Easter. We had a big Sunday as well, but part of that was because there was a party going on. But we have not seen the post Easter dip that we typically do either. I think, like we've said, the older people that used to leave for 5 or 6 months out of the year, they've decided, hey, I've got to choose one house or the other, and a lot of them have chosen to be here instead of up there. I think that's a part of it. I don't know if family vacation schedules are different. Maybe the families that used to be able to afford to go on the 2 or 3 week big vacation every summer are now doing a Monday through Friday thing or something.
It's just
don't
we
know,
used
but
to be able to scale back a little bit in the summer, and we could kind of breathe a little bit and plan for the fall. But like we're feeling the pressure right now, and it's June, which is very odd to me. Stephanie says, "Silly me." Oh boy, she says, "I thought I was getting a bad boy when I started dating Tim." She had no idea. She had no idea. Instead, she got the youth group kid. I was such a youth group junkie.
But at least for a season, you did have a white guy with dreadlocks. I mean,
that's true. No, that's true.
At least there was a season of your life when, people assumed you were both high school dropouts. So that's good for you,
I think
at least.
CJ is right. It's the popularity of the podcast. Like that, the recent growth at Lakeview Church is because of this, because of Andrew and I laughing and making fun of each other for an hour every single week.
Tim, do you think it's because we're on YouTube now too?
Probably.
That's got to be what it is.
I'll tell you right now. There's one person watching on YouTube, so that's probably it. That would make the most sense.
Probably what it's come to.
John says there's a lot of people that are moving to the area, and it being the middle of summer break will cause and I get all of that. I guess my argument here is this has never been a thing in the past. So for the history of the church, and I've been at Lakeview for 15 years now, I've just been able to
entire adult life.
Yeah, I've been able to understand, hey, when the summer comes, it's going to be a time to breathe a little bit, to recoup. There was a season where we would go down to one service as a church just because of the ebb and flow of attendance. And like that third service that we wanted to hold off till September, we might not be able to hold off till September before we go to 3 services.
Timmy, my previous church, we had the very traditional service, pipe organ and choir robes. And in the summer, it would dip to, the room would be 70% empty.
Yeah,
but it would be the bigger of the 2
normal.
services in, January to March. So I get it, but we're not seeing.
Ben says you're welcome. Yeah. The only one on YouTube.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you, buddy. We need you. We are thrilled to have you holding it down in YouTube land. Timmy, last week we had something in the show notes that I forgot to mention. That
it was in the notes. That was on you.
I know. Tim, here it is. I've mentioned this before. I have not been chewing gum recently. I've moved back to the Listerine breath strips.
Which I remember when those came out, and it was like a challenge to, if you would lick it, put it on your forehead.
At once,
we used to stick them up our noses to feel the burn.
That was a youth group game. You'd stick one on your forehead and have squirt guns, and the first person's to be completely dissolved, but then you'd get Listerine in your eyes.
It would fry your head. It was awesome.
Tim, last Sunday, we was the first Sunday of the month. We're serving communion, and I know that I'm about to have 50 people in a line in front of me. And so before I go up to read the words of institution or whatnot, I pop one of these in my mouth because I'm about to be face-to-face whispering to a bunch of people as I give them the elements.
Very close.
And so they all come through the line. I have minty fresh breath for every single one of them. Not just minty fresh, but cool mint fresh breath for every single one of them. Then I do the thing where I go up on the stage and get the stuff to the band as they're playing. And then one of my elders and I serve each other communion. Tim, have you ever taken communion immediately after a Listerine breath strip?
That's a bad idea.
I had that face that the Grinch makes when he's got the big smile that goes all the way to his ears when he's getting the mischievous idea. I almost spat all over an elder in front of the entire church. And it was the worst taste
Andrew,
I have ever had.
That's the equivalent of drinking orange juice after you brush your teeth.
No. That's what everyone said. It's it's like orange juice and toothpaste. No. Tim, grape juice and Listerine breath strip was. I can't even describe how bad it was. Maybe the next time you're here in person, I'll make you.
We could do a challenge. Emily, my daughter, she wants to know what creamer I use. So yesterday, Emily, I forgot to mention this. My now 15-year-old daughter, she came to church with me. She was playing keys on Sunday morning. Every Sunday, that's like my specialty coffee day, so I get up a little early. I make my iced coffee. I use the vanilla latte Starbucks creamer that I froth with my, $15 frother. Yep. Froth the cream, pump it in the iced coffee. And for some reason, it didn't last as long. It's because my daughter decided to share the beverage with me. So Daddy didn't have his iced coffee for the second service sermon, which could explain all the issues we had in second service, which we'll get to in a minute. But I wanted to chat about this, Andrew, because I don't know if anybody out there can relate, but my oldest daughter got her learner's driver's license on Thursday.
It's because you're very old, Tim. You might be 5 years younger than I am, but you are very, very old.
I pulled off to the side of the road. I handed her the keys, and I said, "You're driving from here on home." And she's like, "No, I'm not." And I said, "Get out of the car." And she got out of the car, and she drove us home. And boy, was I terrified.
I was going to say, how'd that go for you?
I was sweating the whole way, and she did a great job.
I have a cousin who I was super, super close to, that we grew up 2 houses away from each other. And I was, I think, 5 years older than her, maybe 6 years older than her. And so, when someone gets the permit, the rule in the state of Florida is they have to be with a licensed driver who is older than 21.
Yes.
And so I was a senior in college when she got her learner's permit.
So you were that guy?
So I was, the parents freaked her out. And so I was the adult who would drive around the car with her. And she was a competitive, like D1 caliber softball player. So there was always gear in the back of her car. So I would just put on a softball ball helmet and ride shotgun. And she thought that was obnoxious, but also hilarious.
Yeah, it's
and
funny.
So I've had some experience being that person. I don't know that I'm ready to have that with my kids. My oldest is 10 months behind your oldest. So we're getting close.
Does he want to drive
Arkansas.
day one?
So he and I went to Celebration Station. It's like a putt-putt golf, video games, and go-karts place here in Clearwater, Florida, the day after Easter, because his school did not have school that day. And he drove a go-kart for the first time in March, April, whenever Easter was. And when we were done with the 4 or 5 laps, he came over to me and said, "Dad, I understand why Albert Einstein never got his driver's license. That was terrifying."
Wow.
So that's about where he is. So we're going up to Arkansas for 3 weeks or so here in a couple of weeks, and my father-in-law just bought a Jeep go-kart for the boys.
Perfect practice.
Because he got a bunch of property up there also a couple months ago, and he just thought it'd be super fun for the boys to have a golf or a go-kart to learn to drive on. And
Why
so
not?
I'm hoping to just put him in the Jeep go-kart and be like, "All right, figure it out." So we have a Jeep up there, 2 side-by-sides, like what you use to throw a bale of hay in to do the animal feeding. So we have 2 side-by-side. They're my in-laws, but so there's 2 side-by-sides, a Jeep go-kart, but also a like tricked out golf cart that they just got because Melissa's aunt is moving into the house next door, and so they want her to be able to get back and forth without getting in the car. And so there's lots of ways that I can train my boys to start driving here in the next couple of weeks. But
maybe by that time they will be day one licensed boys. Emily did all of her testing in advance, which you can now do at 14 and a half. So at 14 and a half, you can take all the tests. So she knocked out the drug and alcohol, which is nothing like the drug and alcohol test you and I took, like back when it was in a classroom.
I sat in an office park, and it was like a
cracking me up.
stand-up comedian who was doing the drug
Mine
and
too.
alcohol test.
Mine too. Emily's was 4 hours of YouTube videos with brains splattered all over the pavement, like actual footage of.
She needed to see.
And she needed me to see it, and I barely slept that night. It was so jarring. She knocked out the driver's test the next day, and we got to the DMV the second they opened. Like, that was how day one she wanted to be. So we were up and at 'em, got there the second they opened, walked in, handed them the documents. She took her picture, and she drove us home.
See, I think that my kid would be super into, because he really doesn't like the fact that he does not have any ID in his wallet. And so I think he would be very excited to go and
you got to get the ID. At least get the ID.
Even if he doesn't want to drive, at least go get your get your picture taken, do the thing.
CJ says I can't handle my wife behind the wheel. CJ, that's sexist. I'm
Wow.
glad my daughter has 10 more years.
Wow.
Wow. Steph says she's doing so good. She really is. Also, just added that creamer you recommended to my Publix cart, Andrew.
There you go. I'm
Andrew,
texting your wife on the side.
Of course you are. John says, sounds like Andrew's family is working on their own compound. It does sound
So,
like that.
John, my in-laws moved to Arkansas in 2013.
John, I'll find the links. It's something else, buddy.
And they decided that being in suburban Russellville, which is a town of 28,000-ish people, the university town, that was still too metropolitan for them, and they got some land at a land auction in a town called Delaware, Arkansas, where, I kid you not, their P.O. box number is, I think, 7. It is a
7.
place where...
A single digit.
And then they just started buying up land at different land auctions. And so now
Wow.
they have the only restaurant in town is Delaware Ice Cream and Deli. It's the old post office building that every little town in America had, like the 20 by 12 cinder block building, has now been turned into a deli and ice cream shop that they own and employ, 2/3 of the youth in town. And they just keep buying up little traces of land in town. So they've got probably, I don't know, maybe just under 100 acres now, but it's exciting.
Ben, I'm right there with you, buddy. I feel you. I too have 4 daughters. I also have a son. He says, I am finishing up teaching my 4th daughter to drive. I think that has taken years off my life expectancy. I feel it. I feel that right now. Andrew, we got Dad's Day coming up in 6 days, Father's Day.
Yeah,
this
what are you guys
Sunday.
doing?
So I have intentionally not asked our first impressions team. I think they wanted to surprise me with what the giveaway is. I took a peek in the closet yesterday. There's a lot of things in there, so I have a feeling Dad's root beer is probably going to be a thing again. It's kind of a staple. There's going to be a ridiculous, funny photo op. We noticed last year that dads don't typically care for the serious photo ops, but if it's funny and makes you laugh, it seems like every dad, there you go. So we do a funny photo op. I don't know if that's going to happen again this year. We'll see. We had a little bit of an accident last year.
I would say let's hope no
hopefully-
one gets hurt this year at your photo op.
Last year, an elderly gentleman fell off the tractor that we had out and sliced his leg open. There was blood everywhere. It was awesome because he was fine, and he hopped up on the tractor and hopped down and wrapped his own leg up and came to church, because that's what dads do, no matter how old you are. So I'm guessing a sweet giveaway that involves Dad's root beer. There's probably going to be a fun or funny photo op. But again, like I said, our first impressions team has opted not to tell me, which I love. I think that's going to make it even more fun when I show up on Sunday.
Well, Timmy, we are not doing the Dad's root beer because we had a different plan.
Let's
We're
hear it.
still doing the M&Ms, which with a rubber band in between them cinched together to look like a bow tie. So, hey, Dad,
Love
I got
it.
you a tie.
Yep.
But, Timmy, we are doing just the regular cans of root beer
Okay.
because in our fellowship hall time, we're doing root beer floats for Dad.
Ooh.
So because we have food time
like
after
that.
church each and every Sunday. So even if you don't want to stay for food, hey, congratulations, you get some M&Ms. But we have a full-on root beer float bar happening
I
during
like that.
our fellowship hall time. So
I like that.
we're going big. Who doesn't love a root beer float?
I love
I
root
think
beer
they're-
floats.
I think they're delicious.
Andrew, I did
And
have
Stephanie,
a little bit of
that
a
creamer is also good to add to a root beer float if you're still watching.
I mentioned last week we were kicking off our men's softball league at Lakeview Church, and Andrew, you and I were texting some unfortunate events on Tuesday night at the game.
I was so excited for you.
We did not win. Neither
didn't win by
of
a
our
lot.
Lakeview teams won. We got destroyed, and it turns out in these particular leagues, there's only a handful of teams, and all of them have been playing together for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Not us.
And they get very excited when a new team joins because
we invited the other team to pray with us afterwards. About 3/4 of the team did stay on the field to pray, and the one guy who opted not to, there's a couple of guys, as I was walking off the field, I overheard him say, well, I guess we got relegated down to the church league this year. I thought it was very, very
really
funny.
That is fantastic.
Because there's only 6 teams in the summer league, and 2 of the 6 are Lakeview.
Well,
so they do feel like it's a church league.
Good news. You have a chance at winning 1/5 of your games against the other Lakeview team.
It's going to be our only hope. It happens next week. We're going to invite the entire church out to laugh and to make fun of.
So excited for you.
Oh, boy.
I think it's going to be a great night.
It could be our only win.
Do you guys play late at night as well?
They're 7, 8, and 9 first pitches. Okay. So we have one of those 3 time slots. So I think we have 7 o'clock this week and then 9 o'clock next week.
And your game is only an hour long, right? That's like the...
Yeah, that's the softball rule. So once the clock starts, it's 1 hour, no matter what the score, no matter what inning, you have 1 hour. So if we are winning by 1 run with like 3 minutes left, I will do all that I can to stall, like soccer style stall. I'll go to the corner, hold onto the ball, and make them come get it from me.
That'll be the Dwight Schrute chasing the volleyball scene. You'll just, whoops, my bad, and fake a.
Yeah, John, we're gonna miss you too, but you could have been the peanut in the peanut gallery. It would have been glorious. There's still time. Does calling bears out of the woods work in that situation? I don't know. It's worth an effort.
It has to.
It's definitely worth a shot.
When else would you?
So, Andrew, are you guys in your summer series right now? I know you had a guest preacher yesterday, but did you just take a break? Are you launching something?
Yeah, we hit pause because I'm in a James series that we're doing. You know, I figure a chapter a week is about as verse by verse as I'm gonna get right now, especially for a shorter book. And so we did the first 3 chapters of James thus far, and we will do the next 2 before I'm gone for a couple weeks. One of the weeks that I'm gone, Dylan is coming back to preach for me. I'm pretty excited about that.
Wow!
So Dylan is preaching on June 30th, which is exciting that a missionary that we support is preaching the week after that when I'm also gone. But I'm pumped that.
So you're missing 2 Sundays in a row.
I'm missing 2 Sundays, and again, Tim, this was my 2nd out of 5 Sundays that I wasn't preaching.
That's weird.
And then I'm preaching 2 weeks, gone 2 weeks. Then the first Sunday of August, I'm not preaching, and then I'm in Scotland for 2 Sundays in November. I've got 7 out of 24. It is
you are a world traveler
record for me. It is.
You are a world
bonkers.
Traveler now.
I feel
missing
like
Sundays, going on world tours,
sabbatical trips. I feel like I'm the anti-Dave Ramsey because I'm going to tell anybody and everybody who will listen the joys of having a credit card that gives you good points. And yeah, it's exciting times.
Steph says, "Don't worry, John. My daughters did a lot of heckling on Tim last week. Look, I have a lower batting stance. I like to bend my knees a little bit more than I probably should. I can't help it."
And did you do the softball batting lesson that you were thinking about doing?
I've talked to some guys, have not done it yet, but we've got a batting cage about 2 miles from my house. It's $40 for a half-hour private slow pitch softball lesson. That sounds worth it to me.
That sounds worth it. But again, Tim, if you would have actually come down here today, we could have gone to lunch right by Celebration Station. I feel like they should be sponsoring this episode. But Tim,
they could be.
You can. I think you get 20 pitches for 5 quarters or something like that. You know, you could have.
Zoe, my daughter who loves me the most, was in the stands mimicking my batting stance every time I swung. Yes, CJ, it's about Jeff Bagwell low. That's just how I roll. But it turns out it's a little bit harder to pitch when you're down that. I mean, harder to hit when you're down that low because the softball comes in at such an odd angle. It's not like baseball. Turns out,
it's not. It's a
whole lot.
Almost like it's a different sport. Timmy, you were telling me that you have completely revamped and revitalized your weekly meeting schedule. Fill me in, buddy. What's going on?
I am making a concerted effort. I noticed a couple of weeks ago I was just kind of saying yes to anything and everything, people wanting to meet and to chat. And you know, like I kind of like being able to do that, but it was eating up my entire week. So I'm doing my best to get all of my meetings down to 1 or 2 days tops. So that means, you know, last Wednesday, I attempted this last week somewhat successfully. I still had a couple of Tuesday meetings, but I think I did a meeting every hour last Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
It's a long day.
It was a long day, but again, I got it all done in a single day. This week's going to be tricky because this week is an elder meeting week. So if I do load up Wednesday, I don't want to be exhausted going into an elder meeting. But Wednesday's already staffing it. So I don't know what you guys do. I've talked to a couple of pastors who have some different theories on this. Some prefer having a full day where they schedule 0 meetings, and that would be my preference. So no breakfast, no lunch, no meetings. Like I do all that is a full day of sermon writing. I can do that, but I'd prefer a half day of prep and then a full day of writing. That to me that would be ideal.
That's kind of where I am.
If I had a half day Tuesday and a full day Thursday, I think I could get the sermon done on time every single week.
I like the idea of...
Stephanie says the word giat got used a lot.
Tim, I don't think that's appropriate to discuss on this podcast. As the person who does the upload, I have to check the explicit language button.
We have middle schoolers and high schoolers in my house, so that word gets used a whole lot.
Let's refrain from the spicy language, Tim. You should be ashamed of yourself. But I think people that don't write for a living, which is weird because in some ways that's kind of a big part of what we do. There has to be a bit of leisure that comes with writing. I remember an episode of the Armchair Expert podcast with what's his name, Dax Shepard, and I think Seth Meyers was on, and they were talking about how their wives would get so mad at them because they're in their office, watching YouTube or goofing off, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like, I'm working, I'm writing. They're like, "You're not writing. You're, sitting there staring at a screen. You don't even have the Word document open." It's like, no, there's a lot of mental space that needs to go into writing, and the best sermon, the best paper, the best whatever it is that you're writing needs to have the time to be read over, thought over, prayed over before the fingers hit the keyboard for the very first time.
Yeah.
And I think unless you are very intentional about your schedule, you're like, oh no, it's Thursday afternoon, I better get something on paper, and having a good chunk of time to prep before you write.
The tricky part right now for us
for
dads is it's summertime, so our kids are home.
Yeah.
So we're trying to maximize time with them while we can. So it's not always going to be the same day every week because my daughter's birthday was Thursday last week, and we birthdays are a big deal in my house. Like, you get the entire day, sometimes the entire weekend. You pick everything, every meal, everywhere we go. So we try to make it special. So Thursday was not a work day for me last week. So that meant Friday ended up being my big sermon writing day. John says, "Oh, so visiting me twice was overwhelming for you. John, you are exhausting." I think you already knew that, which is why every time I visit John, he's got a Monster energy drink waiting for me. I'm going to miss those. John, I'm glad you made it up to South Carolina safely, buddy.
Tim, I think another component of that is when you're talking about, our kids are home, it's hard to explain to somebody else, hey, this is what working looks like. It looks like daddy's free and available to, do whatever it is that the kids want to do, to jump in the pool, to throw the football. I have all boys. My life's probably a little bit different than yours. Watch Lost.
I still do those things. We still jump in the pool and throw the football.
My oldest and I have started watching Lost together. And so we have been up till...
Is it on Netflix now?
It's moving to Netflix July 1st, but it's on Hulu, so Disney Plus.
Yes.
And so we've been Huluing. We're almost through season 1, which is great because it's just fantastic television. But it also means that I'm up till 1 a.m. with my oldest child.
Steph and I have talked about going back to the island starting July. So once it comes to Netflix, we just kind of invite the family down. Whoever wants to watch. They don't all have to, but if they want to, they can.
Well, Tim, last night there was an accident.
Oh no.
It was Boone. He was in the plane. The plane fell. Of course, Locke just said that he fell off a cliff. He didn't say that he actually was crushed. That's going to become an issue.
My favorite is when they decide to
on
introduce
the hatch door and the light turned on. Whew.
Introduce new characters only to kill the new characters all in the same episode. I loved
Nikki
it.
And Paolo. I love Nikki and Paolo. It really is an underrated episode of the show.
But the
Nikki
writers
and
said
Paolo.
that's what spurred them on to actually create an ending because there was so much backlash over that episode. Like, so
was
many
it?
fans were
Ex
just
was it
mad.
Expose? Was that the name of the show that she was on?
Yeah.
The Australian smut show that she was one of the stars of.
If you
I've
did
seen
not watch
a few
Lost,
times.
you
It's
have
great.
no idea what's happening right now. We're so sorry. This has nothing to do with ministry.
But I haven't watched it in so long. It is a show that Melissa and I associate with the birth of our firstborn, who's now watching it with me.
Yep.
And what's funny is I started watching the show because I had a group of 8th graders in my youth group that were obsessed with it back in like the early days of Netflix.
I love it.
And it was, Andrew, you have to watch this. And so a group of 8th graders got me watching the show, and now I'm watching it with my 8th grade son, who my wife was pregnant with during I think we started watching it Christmas of 2009.
Did you not watch it live?
We did not watch week to week. So we watched the last. So we streamed and got caught up in time for the 6th season. So the only season that we watched live was the last one. And
we did season 5 and 6 live, and it was brutal having to wait a week for episodes.
And Landon was born in the middle of that. So I remember watching the season finale on like our 15-inch bedroom TV while he was
John did the
4 or
same
5
thing.
weeks old. So it was. So
it
is a show that in my brain I associate with him, and now we're watching it with him.
I was so weirdly obsessed with it when Lost season 4 came out on Blu-ray. I went to Best Buy. I got there 10 minutes before the store opened, and I waited for the store to open so I could be the first one in to get Lost season 4 on Blu-ray. And I had just gotten let go from my job at a church that you may or may not have been employed with. And Stephanie and
I may have been let go from that same church at one point.
We binged all of season 4 without sleeping. So we did season 4 back to back, every episode, no sleep till it was done. And season 4 was phenomenal, if you remember.
Yeah, it was spectacular.
John, we're not going to talk about the series finale. Let's just pretend like it.
Do you know what? I'm fine with it. Like, look, now that it's been 14 years.
At the time,
okay with the
we
finale.
were not fine with it.
But besides Breaking Bad, what finale was everybody okay with when it came out?
I don't know.
I mean,
we just didn't want it to
finale,
end. We didn't want it to end.
I know. I get that, but you're trying to be ecumenically spiritual without being overly religious. Do you know what? It was just fine for what it was. And J.J. Abrams, I am sorry for the hate that you have received.
John, I'm with you, buddy. I'm still not okay with it. I hate what they did with it. But you know what? I'm still going to rewatch it, and we'll see how my kids take. Andrew, speaking of meetings, I actually have to get to one. I don't know if I'm not have time for lunch. I said I was going to load up Wednesdays, and somehow I threw a Monday meeting in there. How did that happen?
Tim, I just want you to know that if you were down here, we could go to the batting cages and then go get a Applebee's burger. But no.
That sounds like so much fun.
Maybe next week.
Maybe.
You know what, Timmy? Here's the thing. Next week, you've got the big Lakeview softball game. The next day, you should come down here and hit up the batting cages at Celebration Station. We could release a pump-up video to get your team excited of, Pastor Tim in the cages getting ready for the big grudge match.
That would be hilarious.
Hang on. Last thing. This is important. Tim.
I'm listening.
I saw a video last night with the Jaguars stadium that they're doing all the work on.
It looks
They
pretty.
might be moving to Camping World in Orlando for a year.
Ugh, it's possible.
But it's also possible for you to get there after church easier.
Oh, I could make a Camping World game and just be there like midway through the first quarter. Like that would be easy.
Yeah.
I could absolutely do that. The problem is it's Camping World, and if you don't know Camping World, that stadium is a dump.
It is the Citrus Bowl that they just put a new sign on.
It's terrible.
It has not been updated since I was in.
But if they move there for a season or two, I will probably be at most games, just a few minutes late.
Why wouldn't you? I was excited for you when I saw that.
I'm sure
the idea of going to Gainesville, I don't know. I don't know that going to a college stadium for an NFL game makes a whole lot of sense, but whatever.
I don't know. Andrew, we'll have to look at next week. I'm looking at my calendar now. My son has a football camp Monday through Friday. So I need to see what times those are. I'll be here. I might be remote, but we'll see how it goes.
All right, Jimmy, I'm just trying to help you with your swing, bud.
I know. I want to get better. I do.
All right.
Hey,
later
go get it done. You get a lot
see
to
you
do.
next week. Hey, we'll be here next week, and then we won't be here the week after that. So Tune in while you can.
You're not going to want to miss this. See you later, guys.